Now in this video, I want to kind of describe and help you understand how everything kind of works together from a high level. So I've got this little diagram here to kind of show how it all fits. Essentially, we always start off with step number one, which is Klevu.js. This is essentially the core library. It has built-in utilities and helpers. It's the base search object that everything is copied from. It's like everything is cloned. All the themes are cloned from that base object. It also loads analytics and other features, and it just does a bunch of establishing the order of things. And so from there, once that library has loaded, step two is being able to load the themes. Now, one thing that I didn't add into this is the settings. Settings need to be passed in. The settings are how you configure Klevu.js, but it's not really important as far as like understanding how the customizations themselves actually work. But what I want to illustrate here is that there's like a certain sequence of events that are happening in a very specific order, and these are the things that you have available to you to hook into things. So once you kind of wrap your head around the idea of there is a base search object, that base search object has the plumbing, as you might want to call it, for how these events are all kind of wired together. And so essentially whenever quick, for example, the quick theme is loaded, it creates a copy of that base object and then makes certain modifications to it so that it works the way that quick search should work, which is different than the way that the search result landing page or catnav or recommendations works. And so the sequence of events looks something like this. Once you have the base object and all the utilities and everything is kind of ready to go, then Quick can make a copy of that base object and it starts to make modifications to it. At some point in time, that theme is going to be activated. When that theme is activated, you have a hook called Klevu.beforeActivation. Klevu is a global object that is created when Klevu.js gets created. There's a function called beforeActivation that you can trigger to essentially hook into before the activation of that particular theme. So you can use this Klevu beforeActivation to hook into quick, or you can use that beforeActivation to hook into landing, or you can, it's a comma separated string, so you can do combinations of different things. But from there, you can essentially modify that theme. Some of the things that you can do, and some very common things that you do inside of this beforeActivation are things like setting or replacing custom templates, or you can set or replace custom helpers. You can also do what's called modifying chains. Chains is the oh gosh, how do I explain it? It's like it's a list of events, and these lists of events, a link in that chain could be to trigger another chain. So we'll get into that later. But that's something that you can do inside of before activation. Essentially, the things that you want to do before activation are to set up things so that once something is triggered to make that either quick or landing or catnav or recommendations do something, whatever it happens to be, whether it's like a key up event for the quick search or it's the page load for the search result page, et cetera, et cetera. Once that event happens, if you've already modified the theme, then everything that executes after that will take your modifications into account. And I've very specifically called out the fact that you can either set something, so you can add something, or you can replace something that's there. You can even remove things that are already there. So if you wanted to remove a link in a chain for when a request is being fired or a response is being received and processed, when a template is being rendered, when the events are actually executing to trigger certain things after the templates have rendered, all of those things could be done through modifying of these chains, and you want that to all happen before the trigger that starts the request, before the request is made. Once that request has been triggered, that allows you to run another hook, which is called Klevu modify request. This is where you can use that storefront API to modify the way that the request is being fired to do whatever it is that you want to do. From there, at some point, you're going to receive a response. There's another hook where you can run a function so that you can say klevu.modify response. And again, each one of these functions is designed to work to where you specify if you want to modify the response for landing and then go do some stuff. Or you want to modify request for quick and go do some stuff. Or you want to do before activation for quick and you want to do some stuff. So each one of these you can specify, we call it the scope, but you can specify what it is that you actually want to have affected when that trigger is happening. And these functions will only fire when the correct scope is actually being executed. So if you have a modify response for quick, it is only going to fire when a response comes back for quick. If there's a response that came back for landing and they're both on the same page, that function will not run. After it runs the modify response, then there's a whole sequence of events where it processes the response data. Then this is essentially, the way I like to think of it is that this is when we're getting the data ready to render. Then there's the events that happen while the templates themselves are actually being rendered. There's all the stuff that happens there. So when you were actually setting custom templates or setting helpers and so on and so forth, all of that is actually executing during that rendering process. Then from there, we have the events portion of things, and it always starts off with the built-in post-render events. So the built-in events that happen for analytics, for example, so that whenever you click on a product that we fire the analytics tracking to tell Klevu and the AI that a product has been clicked on, or any of those kinds of things. Even if the products are being viewed, for example. So we fire an event for that so that we know that a particular product showed up on a search result page or on a category page or on a quick search page, kind of a thing. So there's a bunch of built-in post-render events. And again, because of those chains and being able to modify things, you have the ability to remove some of the things that are the built-in events. You can replace some of the built-in events, and you can also add in events through the chains, or at the very end of that post-render events, you can also use another hook called klevu.afterTemplateRender. And then that's where you can put in your own user events, your own custom code. So if you added a special button into your custom template and you want that button to trigger some third-party wish list or some special quick view, code that you created or that, is part of the website or whatnot, anything that you want to have happen after the templates have finished rendering, you can run through there. Now, the cool thing about these events is that sometimes these events, like for example, if you clicked on a filter or if you clicked on a link for pagination, for example, some of those events will then turn around and become a new trigger that will start a new request, a new response, processing that new response, rendering the templates again, resituating everything with the events firing. And so this sequence goes on and on and on until the user navigates away from the page. The goal is that Klevu is a discovery platform. So the point of all of this is to present the best products for that user, or the best content for that user, and to get them to go do the action that your business is trying to get your users to do. So that's a very high level idea of how these functions that I showed you in the previous video with the customization and the building the UI and all that stuff, that this is how it all kind of flows together and fits together.